All right. Good evening and welcome to Brain Octane. I got to tell you, I never take for granted that you could be doing something else with your time, but you chose to make this a priority and prioritizing your health and your future health to be here tonight. So I applaud you for that. For those of you, I want to make sure that you all remember to be here because we are going to talk a lot about your brain, memory. But I will tell you the way to experience incredible health is through constant and never-ending improvement. So what we're going to do is help you improve your health, that especially of your brain here today. You're going to learn how to protect your brain, protect your memory, and enhance it. We're going to teach you how to avoid the biggest brain busters and strategies to be mentally sharper than you've ever been before. And this is really vital today, especially today, because we're literally experiencing a healthcare tsunami called Alzheimer's and dementia. And it is getting worse every decade. It is crazy. This if you can see this slide, in 2005, a total of 25 million Americans were diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia. 25 million in 2005, 30 million in 2010, 35 million in 2015, 2020, 41 million. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. By 2050, they're saying 106 million people will be diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia. And it is costing us not billions, but trillions. They're talking about $3 billion a day or $1 trillion a year to take care of our loved ones that are suffering with Alzheimer's and dementia. And how is this happening? There are a number of things that we're going to talk about here tonight. One of them is taking medications like Benadryl. I mean, honestly, how many of you have ever taken a Benadryl before just to go to sleep? I know back when I took medications back in high school and college, I took a Benadryl to go to sleep because it knocked you out. But nobody ever taught us the risks. And now they're saying that drugs like Benadryl actually are linked to an increased dementia risk. In fact, it can actually increase the risk by up to 54% by taking these medications. And how many people are taking these medications regularly, let alone giving them to their children? There are better ways to manage allergies than medications. How do you know if you're at risk for dementia? And I can tell you right now, I have a lot of patients who they're dealing with it. They have family members that are dealing with it, and it is hard to watch. It's hard to deal with, and it is devastating to see somebody that used to know everything about you all of a sudden become a stranger, like a parent. It is sad to see. I don't want it for me. I don't want it for my parents. I don't want it for anybody. And if there was something that I could do now to start reducing my risk of that ever happening, I'm going to do it. And if you are somebody that's dealt with this with a parent, I'm sure you're listening. I'm sure you want to know, what is your risk? How can I mitigate and minimize my risk of ever doing this to myself, my loved ones, or to my children, getting into having to go to a home? So here are some of the tests that you can do. We did these maybe a month or two ago in my office, and we're going to pull it back out for you guys to try it again. Some of the tests are hand grip strength. So your walking pace and hand grip strength are directly related to your dementia risk. How is that? Well, how fast you walk is indicative of your overall well-being. If you think about it, the people in the nursing homes, they're not walking very quickly. They have slumped over posture. They're not able to move as well, and that tells us that you are actually more likely to get Alzheimer's and dementia. But the other test that you can do very easily, and you can do it in our office, is hand grip strength. So we have something called a dynamometer, which I actually happen to have right here. This is what a dynamometer looks like, and it tells you how strong you are, right? It tells you your grip strength. And if you look, when you put your arm out, you do a squeeze. This is my right hand. I squeeze it, and I can see my number was 55 kilograms or 120 pounds. And then you look at this chart here. This is a grip strength for women, but I had to put one up there. I am almost 50, and my grip strength is in the top 10%. Well, that's pretty impressive. But what I'm saying this for is that there are studies that show is if your hand grip strength is in the yellow or the red of this chart here, which means your muscles are weak, you actually have a 72% more likely, you're 72% more likely to develop dementia than people in the purple and the blue. So we need to make sure that we are exercising, getting our muscles stronger, getting our posture better. And although you wouldn't think that that would correlate to brain health, it actually does. So 5 essentials to the rescue. What are we going to do for that? We are going to exercise. Dementia is not a genetic problem. There are some genetic predispositions, but what's more important than your genes is something called epigenetics, above your genes. You take that gene that causes breast cancer or possibly Alzheimer's, and you put that gene into a poor lifestyle, it will then turn on and create breast cancer and dementia. You take that same gene and you change its lifestyle. You put it into a pristine lifestyle, living the 5 essentials, those genes are shut down. They are shut off. So you can actually control your genetic expression, whether you have the gene or not, by changing your lifestyle. So what are we going to do? We are going to exercise. Regular, moderate to vigorous physical activity can reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease and dementia by approximately 28 to 45%. That is huge. So getting out and exercising regularly, not just every once in a while, regularly, very, very important. A low inflammation whole food diet can significantly reduce Alzheimer's risks. Studies showing up to 35% reduced risk of dementia by eating whole foods. And then poor sleep. If you're not sleeping well, you're tossing and turning all night, you're waking up more tired than when you went to sleep, poor sleep will actually increase your risk of dementia by 30 to even up to 70%. While protecting deep sleep will actually lower your risk. So we need to make sure we're getting proper sleep at night. So what we're going to talk about here today are the top 4 brain busters. Okay, these are 4 things that will lead you down the road to a higher risk or incidence of Alzheimer's and dementia. So I'm going to teach you the top 4 here tonight. So number 1 here is the brain shrinking diet, and we have a brain shrinking diet here in the United States. The Your Plate, the pantry, the grocery cart, they need to look different than most people around you, because most people are eating the brain shrinking diet, processed foods, high in sugar, high in junk. Stress and cortisol, increased stress and increased cortisol levels. Too much of the stress will actually shrink your brain, and we have more stress than ever. Wouldn't you guys agree with that? Yeah, more stress than ever. Glyphosate is Roundup. Roundup is sprayed on all of our corn and soy because they've been genetically modified to resist Roundup. They're called Roundup Ready crops, and glyphosate actually can cause cancer and leads to things like dementia. Great. And then you have things like cholesterol-lowering medications. The thing that your doctor puts you on to tell you that you're mitigating your risk of heart disease, what is it actually doing? It's causing more problems with your brain. We're going to go into that here in a second. So let's start with the brain shrinking diet. So tonight, what is the brain shrinking diet? Listen, if you were to leave my office today and drive directly to the nearest grocery store, pay attention to the fast food places and the gas stations you pass on the way, then go inside the store and walk the aisles, especially those middle aisles. That's where the brain shrinking diet is. It's all processed foods, chips, breads, what those things do, they all trigger insulin to be released in your body. And that is the biggest brain shrinker and aging accelerator of all, too much insulin. They actually call Alzheimer's and dementia type 3 diabetes. So it's a sugar problem. We get too much sugar, we get too many grains, too many things that convert into sugar, and they call it healthy food. Not true. It's actually shrinking your brain. So I can tell you right now, food companies are not in the business to make you healthy. They're in the business to make you fat so that you buy more food. Thankfully, the FDA food pyramid finally has been flipped on its head so people have better guidance, because for years we focused on the pyramid, the food pyramid, right? And what was at the base of that? Grains. Grains convert to sugar in your mouth and in your body. So our base of our diet for the past 40 years has been grains and sugar. And look what's happened to us. We've gotten bigger and bigger, sicker and sicker, and more Alzheimer's and dementia. So what we really should do now, when we flip it over on its side or upside down, we should make the base of protein, vegetables, and fruit. Listen, if you just ate chicken, vegetables, and a fruit every day for all your meals, you'd be so much healthier. I know that's not feasible all the time, but I think it'd make a big difference because these foods actually regulate your insulin levels and stop brain shrinkage. So what diet should we follow? Well, if you've been a patient of mine long enough, you would know that we have brain expanding diets. We also call those the Max Living Nutrition Plans. And we have two plans. We have the core plan and the advanced plan. If the core plan is very, very simple changes, it's really good for nutrition for healthy families, health maintenance, disease prevention, moderate to light weight loss, really just health restoration, homeostasis. Let's keep things status quo. And when you're doing that, you're eating more good, healthy fats, less bad fats. You're cleaning up the quality of the ingredients you're cooking with. So your meats are still going to be grass-fed beef. It's going to be organic chicken. It's going to be wild-caught fish. And then we're going to just remove a lot of the processed foods. But if you need more weight loss, or your weight loss resistance, your cholesterol is high, your blood lipids are high, high blood pressure, inflammatory conditions, gut issues, or even diabetes or pre-diabetes, you're going to want to be on what's called the advanced plan. And a lot of you have done this with me before. The advanced plan, we're taking the core plan and we're removing the sugars altogether. So no more grains, no potatoes, no sugars, very, very little fruit because it is full of sugar. And when you're doing that, you're stopping inflammation in the gut. You're stopping the insulin release. You are actually restoring proper health, restoring proper hormones, and making yourself healthier overall. So if you're really trying to overcome a disease, start with the advanced plan, and then you can transition to the core plan. The way my wife and I do it, we'll do the core plan most of the time. Even when we're doing core plan, we still incorporate advanced plan meals because they're just good. And then I'd say 3 to 4 times a year, depending on what's going on, we'll go advanced plan for 30 days just to reset everything. And then we'll come back to the core plan and mix in some other things. And then we go back and forth throughout the year. But I'd say 30 days is a good amount of time to stick to the advanced plan unless you're dealing with certain issues or trying to work on something. So when we're talking about food, what are actually one thing I want to tell you about on that last one, Whitney created this for us. If you text our phone number, 770-345-9355, if you text the word brain, she's going to send you automatically some advanced plan recipes so you can see what advanced plan looks like in comparison to a core plan and maybe get some new recipes for you guys to try this week. So what are the top 5 brain boosting foods? What can we do to nurture our brain so that we can be healthier, think straighter? These are the top 5. Let's start with the number 1. There is the omegas, omega fatty acids, also called essential fatty acids. Essential meaning your body cannot make them, which means you have to get them from your diet. And omegas are those omega-3s fatty acids that what we're talking about, particularly something called DHA and EPA. You've probably heard me talk about this before, but EPA and DHA, they're beneficial for brain health. They may help reduce the risk of dementia due to several neuroprotective and anti-inflammatory mechanisms. Those are really important. And where are you going to find that? You're going to find those in typically wild-caught fish. Salmon is full of them. But I can tell you right now, if it's farm-raised salmon, it's not going to have what you want from it. So make sure you're always buying wild-caught, not farm-raised fish so you can get those omega-3 fatty acids. Avocados may support brain health and potentially reduce dementia risk due to their rich content of healthy fats, antioxidants, and specific vitamins. These nutrients work in concert to improve blood flow to the brain, as I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. That's really important for memory, protects brain cells from damage, and maintains a healthy brain cell structure and function. One of my and my wife's favorite, not only words to say ashwagandha, but also herbs, is ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is an Ayurvedic herb, and it helps to lower cholesterol, not cholesterol, but cortisol levels. And cortisol levels have to do with stress. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But when your stress levels are high, your cortisol levels are high, we want to help you bring them down. Yes, we need to remove the stress, but taking ashwagandha will actually adapt to the body and help reduce the body's stress response, which will reduce fatigue, improve mental performance, and especially in cases of chronic stress or burnout, help reset those neurotransmitters. The next one here are berries. Berries are full of antioxidants, anti-inflammatory properties, especially blueberries. And berries help fight inflammation, which is recognized as a critical factor in chronic age-related conditions, including Alzheimer's. There's metabolic effects, benefits, like regular berry consumption can improve metabolic function, such as enhancing insulin sensitivity and lowering fasting insulin levels. So again, eating berries are really good for you. Just make sure those berries are organic. And then nuts. And nuts are packed with antioxidants like vitamin E, polyphenols, and flavonoids, but they're also full of good, healthy fats and some omega-3s and omega-6 fatty acids. So more of those omegas we talked about. And they help to reduce oxidative stress, which creates bad energy in our body and inflammation. And those are key factors in developing and progressing dementia. So we want to reduce inflammation and reduce oxidative stress. So eating healthy nuts would be a good idea. One thing that we've talked about in the past, really not so much about dementia and brain health, but more just about the immune system. You've probably heard me talk about how vitamin D levels are very, very crucial for your immune system. Your immune system doesn't function without vitamin D. So we need to make sure our vitamin D levels are high. So a study in 2017 showed that your vitamin D concentrations, if they're less than 25, especially if your levels are 25 or less, it severely increases the risk of dementia in adults, especially if you're over 65 years old. So we need to make sure that we're getting our vitamin D levels up. In order to do that free, right? The sun is going to help create vitamin D in your skin, but you have to be naked for 30 minutes around noon every day. I'm not sure how much your neighbors would appreciate that. So what I do is I supplement vitamin D. So I take 5,000 IUs every single day to make sure I'm getting all the vitamin D I need, because I want my vitamin D levels to be higher than what they consider normal. They consider normal 20 to 60 or 20 to 75. I really want my vitamin D levels between 50 and 60. So this is why I tell all my patients, listen, who needs vitamin D3? It's a simple test to figure out if you need it. You take 2 fingers and you put them right here. And if you feel a pulse, you need vitamin D3. Okay, very, very simple. So make sure you're taking 5,000 IUs of vitamin D3 every single day. What else can cause issues we talked about is stress. And this is very, very important. Stress shrinks your brain. Now, stress is supposed to be good. Okay, acute stress is fine. Chronic stress is the enemy. So if you imagine we're walking out in the woods and we come upon a bear, we are going to activate what's called the fight or flight response. That is an acute stress. There's a bear. Are we going to fight it? The answer is no, we're not going to fight it. So what are we going to do? We're going to run. I can't remember if that's the right thing to do, but you know what? That's probably what I would do anyway. I just need to be the fastest person, or just faster than the slowest person, right? So we're going to flight. We're going to run. That is an acute stressor. When the stressor goes away, we've gotten away from the danger. What happens to our body? Everything calms back down. Now, that's normal. What's a chronic stress? Imagine that bear constantly is chasing you every single day and you can't get away from that. Listen, that's how our lives can be sometimes and feel sometimes. There's always stress. There's always stress. And that is called chronic stress. And chronic stress can actually change your brain. When stress becomes long-term, it shrinks what's called the hippocampus. It's right in the middle of your brain. And that's the part of the brain that's responsible for learning and for memory. So when you are shrinking the hippocampus, what happens? It leads to more anxiety, more reactivity, and more flight or fight. And they all actually call it freeze, don't know what to do. And when that's happening, we're also enlarging something called the amygdala. It's another part of the brain that is our fear center. So now our memory goes down, our focus becomes less, our calm becomes less, because now we have more anxiety. So we're out of balance. We do not want that. So what do we need to do? The good news is your brain is capable of bouncing back. It's called neuroplasticity. You can change your brain. So how do you know if your stress levels are, how do you know if your body's been stressed for too long? There's something called adrenal fatigue. You may have heard about it. You don't know what it means. So again, the problem with constant stress is that the toll it takes on your adrenal glands. And your adrenal glands, they're made to deal with stress in short bursts like we've been talking about, but now they're constantly being attacked from our modern lifestyle, causing chronic stress. and your adrenals respond by pumping out cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone. It's supposed to be there short term, not long term. But if that stressor doesn't go away, the adrenal glands are constantly trying to pump out cortisol, and they end up wearing out. Then you get these symptoms. What are some of the symptoms of adrenal fatigue? Craving salt, overly emotional, tired after exercise. You should feel energized after exercise, not tired. Brain fog, weight gain, trouble sleeping, frequently sick, depression, anxiety, exhaustion in the morning, lightheaded when standing up, and being irritable. These are all signs that your adrenals are under attack. So what should we do about this? Well, let's try removing the stress, but that's pretty difficult to do. So what I want to do first is I want to support my adrenal health. And we're going to support it with specific, specific vitamins and nutrients that are going to help, again, support a proper stress level and stress response from our adrenals. So we talked about ashwagandha earlier. It is an effective evidence-based adaptogenic herb that lowers your cortisol levels by 30% when somebody is stressed. So that right there can decrease your stress levels. And when your stress levels and cortisol levels come down, you're not going to be as irritable. Your fuse will become longer, which is very important. You're going to be able to not hold on to weight. So your weight loss resistance might start to dwindle, and you might actually start to lose some weight, which is really important. Rhodiola rosea exerts an anti-fatigue effect that increases mental performance. And this is going to be important for the ability to concentrate and decrease cortisol response to awakening stress, meaning that we're able to concentrate longer and we're not going to be so stressed when we first get out of bed. If you've ever gotten awakened in the middle of, or in the morning and you're like really like stressed and anxious, it's because of your adrenals are probably fatigued. So this is going to help with that. Chronic stress will also rapidly deplete your B vitamins. So we need to make sure we're giving your body more B vitamins so it can use those as fuel. And then cordyceps mushrooms is a highly regarded as an adaptogenic mushroom, and that supports the adrenal glands, helps the body manage stress and boost energy levels, particularly in cases of adrenal fatigue or stress-induced exhaustion. So this adrenal balance has all those things in it. So if you're even dealing with one or even two of the things we saw in the last slide, adrenal balance would be a great thing to take for a month or two to help balance out your adrenals and help restore your stress levels or your cortisol levels and mitigate your stress. But we're talking about your brain, not just your cortisol levels, but what else can we take or what else can we do? Our KHS line, our Kingdom Health Science line that just came out, it's all regenerative organic vitamins and herbs. They came out with a new supplement called Memory. And one of the best things for your memory and your focus is this supplement, because not only it has a patented type of ashwagandha in it that will support your healthy stress response and cognitive clarity, it also has fermented turmeric, ginger, and galangal root, which are going to help healthy neuroinflammatory responses. The purpose of Memory is actually to increase blood flow to the brain so that we can get more oxygen to the brain so we can actually think clear and have better cognition, which will help with the memory. So when you are dealing with a lot of stress and you take this with the adrenal balance, you're going to see a bigger change. So, but you know, you can take the supplements, which I think is great, but if we never address the root cause, which is your stress levels being too high, no supplement can fix that. So what do we need to really do? One of the best things you could do to reduce stress and reduce your cortisol levels is something called mindfulness. Being mindful, doing things on purpose instead of things always happening to you. You're going to do things that are mindful, like walking in nature. Now, my wife has been begging family members to go on walks at night, and I've told her and many times I don't like walking because I feel like, why are we walking? We're not going anywhere. We're going down the road just to come back to the house. I don't mind going for a walk if I'm walking to get somewhere, but I will tell you, for Mother's Day, you know, we can't say no to mom. So yesterday was Mother's Day, and we've had this tradition on Mother's Day where everybody locks their phones up. We're going to be mindful. We're going to be present. We're going to be in the moment. We go to a nursery and get flowers. We do our planters. We might watch a movie, but no TV comes on, no phones are on. Unless mom said we're going to watch a movie, we are all going to be present. And, that's unfortunately, that used to be every day. And now it's 1 or 2 days a year that we are making our kids do this, right? Being mindful and being present. But I can tell you, being mindful means being where you are and not lost in your thoughts about the future or the past. Because if you're stuck worrying about future problems or regretting past problems, you're always running from that bear in the woods. That is that chronic stress. So it's important to break the stress cycle intentionally and daily. And I'm going back to the walking thing. My wife said, all I want to do after dinner is go for a walk with the family. And I said, well, it's Mother's Day. I'm going to do whatever mom wants to do. And that made sure everybody said yes. And we all went for a walk and we had a great time. I might be shooting myself in the foot by saying this because she's probably going to want to go on more walks. And I'm probably going to say yes, because I actually did have fun, even though I don't enjoy typically walking. It was fun just being out in nature, being with the kids. Nobody had a phone. So if you have not done that lately, I would highly suggest doing that with your family. So taking it, like I said, some things you could do, take the walk in nature without your phone, without music, be quiet. It's okay. Mow the lawn, don't need headphones. Just listen to nature, because when you start to quiet your mind, then you can hear nature. You can hear God talk to you. And that's when really good things will happen in your brain. Something called mindful eating. Most people inhale their food while they're watching TV or on their phone, just doing this. How about use eating to increase your mindfulness? Take smaller bites, chew more, really taste the flavors of the food that you're making. Count how many times you chew. Focus on the flavors, the textures. Why? Because it's a great way to practice being right here, right now. That's it. Just being right here, being in the present. You can also do something called a gratitude journal. This is a great thing to do. When you wake up in the morning, write down 3 things that you're grateful for right now. Sometimes it could just be, I have a house and a roof over my head. I mean, sometimes it could be, I have the best spouse in the world and I have great kids and I appreciate my health. And sometimes it is, hey, I just got a new car and I'm excited about it. Whatever it is, what are you excited about? What are you grateful for? Yes, we could have thousands of things we could write down, but just pick 3 that are on your mind when you wake up. I also like to do, I've been doing it lately and getting a lot of stuff done. Write not just 3 things down that you're grateful for, but what are 3 things you want to get done today? Write those 3 things down, because I can tell you, if you don't write those down, a lot of times they swirl around in your head. And then what are you doing? You're causing more stress in your body and in your mind, because now you're not present with people because you keep having to remember the things that you needed to get done. Or crap, I didn't do those yesterday, or I got to do those later. If you write these things down and actually knock them off, you feel very accomplished. And at the end of the night, you can be more present with your family because you're not thinking about all the things you had to do and should have done. You actually got things done. Okay. And then make sure you're practicing self-compassion. Give yourself grace. I've read this statement before, but I think this is very interesting. If you had a friend that talked to you like you talk to yourself in your head, would you really be friends with that person? What are you talking about to yourself? What are you saying to yourself? How do you speak to yourself? What are you doing, you idiot? Guess what? When you say these things, even though you might not think you're believing it, you're putting it out there. Your body is absorbing it. It's hearing it. It does not like it. So don't talk to yourself the way you would talk to another person. Make sure you're building yourself up, giving yourself grace. If you make mistakes, guess what? It's okay to make a mistake. Don't get down on yourself. Learn from it. Okay. Let's talk about glyphosate. Glyphosate is made by Monsanto. Monsanto was now owned by Bayer, and they are a chemical company. It's sort of a weed killer, but it behaves like a slow systemic toxin, soaking into soil, foods, and bodies, while corporations insist it's harmless. It is no big deal. Monsanto is not just marketing a chemical, it's normalizing poisoning the ecosystem and calling that progress. And for years, they said it's completely safe. It's completely safe. Yet in 2018, a gentleman in California sued Monsanto for knowing that it caused cancer, because he got cancer from being a groundskeeper at a school. And he won like $39 million because the jury said, yes, it did cause the cancer. And Monsanto knew it was going to cause cancer and put no warnings on any of their bottles. So we need to make sure that we are staying as far away from glyphosate as possible and not eating foods that have glyphosate on it. That's also called Roundup. If you're eating corn or corn and wheat, most of those are going to be sprayed with Monsanto's Roundup, because they've been genetically modified to be Roundup ready. Look up Roundup ready crops. It's going to be corn, it's going to be grains, it's going to be soy. Why are they making those? They genetically modified the DNA of these plants to not die when sprayed with Roundup. So they can now spray the entire fields of these crops with Roundup, and the only thing that's going to die are the weeds, because the plants will no longer die from the Roundup. But guess what? That chemical is still going into the plant and into the food and then into you. What is that doing to us? This is crazy. This statistic, this is awful. So I hope you can see what I'm looking at here with this screen. But if you look at the green line, okay, it's a very straight line. That's the incidence of deaths from senile dementia. And it starts in 1979, it goes up to 2009, and it's a very straight line. And it's following a trend. It was following a trend from 1979 to 1999, and it was all very, very straight. That was the predicted incidence of death from dementia. But then if you look at the yellow bars, that was the actuality of it. How many people actually died? The green was where it was supposed to be. The yellow is what happened. And in 1991, you can see it starts getting higher, way above the green. And you look at 2009, it's off the chart at the top. What also started happening at that same time? They started spraying glyphosate on our crops. That's the red line. The red line, how many crops were being sprayed? And you can see the more we sprayed, the more dementia and people dying from dementia. Out of control. That's on the left side. On the right side, interesting enough, started in 1990. This was how many children have autism. Now, this is not causation for those of you that are researchers. This is correlation. They have not been able to prove causation, but it's pretty darn correlative in my book. But there are studies out there that do show it. Now, in 1990, it was 1 in 10,000 boys had, in 2000, 1 in 10,000 boys had autism. And now in 2020, it's 1 in 46. Something's wrong. And they started spraying that in 1990, and look at the trend, off the chart again. Very similar pattern from autism to dementia. Neurological disorders, neurological problems. What do we need to do about this? Well, we can vote with our dollars. Basically, what we're doing here is buying organic is a quiet rebellion against bathing your food in glyphosate, that a chemical that's been so normalized we've stopped even asking whether it belongs in our bodies at all. We just think it's part of life, which is completely not true. So if you look at this on this the yellow block there, hummus, regular hummus, organic hummus has 65, what is it? 65, what does it say? The average amount of glyphosate. So 65 in organic hummus, regular hummus was 296. So there was 5 times more glyphosate in regular hummus than organic hummus. In granola, 300 times more glyphosate in conventional granola than organic. Oat breakfast cereal, 700 times more glyphosate in your conventional oat cereal than an organic comparable. Snack bars, if they're not organic, 318 times more glyphosate than an organic bar. So when you're buying organic, what are you really doing? You're making sure you're minimizing your exposure to glyphosate. Glyphosate can lead to things like neurological disorders like autism spectrum disorder and Alzheimer's and dementia. So when you are buying organic, you're not just following a trend, you're being smart. Okay? All right. What was it? One of the last ones we talked about was one of the brain busters was cholesterol lowering medications. Now I have a whole workshop all about heart health, all about cholesterol medications, all about what cholesterol is. But cholesterol is, I'm gonna give you a short bit of it. Cholesterol, soft waxy substance, 80% of the cholesterol in your body is actually made by your liver. It's not from your diet. So when you are trying to lower your cholesterol, understand it's in your body already. It's not actually from your diet so much. Now, you have something called LDL and HDL. LDL, I consider like LDL is a taxi cab carrying cholesterol, because LDL is not cholesterol. It's a low density lipoprotein. And HDL is a high density lipoprotein. And we need cholesterol to manufacture hormones, bile acid, and even vitamin D. So you can't even make estrogen or testosterone or cortisol without cholesterol. So we need cholesterol. Now, LDL actually will take cholesterol to an injury site and lay the cholesterol down. So if I had some a Brillo pad and I start scraping my arm like this, eventually my arm's going to get raw. What do I want to do? I want to go ahead and patch that up. So I would put cholesterol into an LDL and send it to the injury site, and the cholesterol will get out of the cab and patch itself to stop the bleeding and stop the injury. And once the injury is healed, HDL would come along and say, hey, you need a ride? And cholesterol would say, yep, I'm done here. Get into the cab of HDL and go back to the liver. So when your HDL is high, what does that mean? That means your body doesn't need the cholesterol. It's not, there's no injury, or you've already healed. If your LDL is high, that means your liver is actually putting out cholesterol to injury sites. So cholesterol isn't really the problem. What the problem is that we have injury sites. And what causes injuries on the inside of your arteries is inflammation. And what causes inflammation in your arteries? Bad fats and sugar. How do we fix that? Go back to the beginning when we talked about the healthy diet. Advanced plan will fix those things. So what you do is you go on the advanced plan, stop the inflammation, your cholesterol will change. Your HDL will go up, your LDL will go down, and you won't have these problems anymore. That's how I would treat it. That's what I would tell my patients. But unfortunately, most people go to the doctor once a year, they get blood work, and of course, cholesterol is going to be on there. And as soon as your cholesterol is over 200, for no reason, they're going to say, you know what, we're going to put you on a cholesterol lowering medication. That's the answer. Not fixing what caused the problem. We're just going to lower your cholesterol because according to the doctors, cholesterol is the problem. Well, cholesterol might be the thing that's occluding your artery, but it's not the problem. The problem is that you are not changing your diet and causing more injury sites to the inside walls of your blood vessels, and we're laying down more cholesterol. Cholesterol has just got the bad name. So this little flow chart here, you don't need to know all of it. What you do need to know is cholesterol lowering medications, they stop one enzyme from working, and that's HMG-CoA reductase. You don't need to know that. What you do need to know is when we stop that, we stop cholesterol from forming, but it also stops some proteins from being made by your body, and it also stops your body from making CoQ10. CoQ10 is extremely important for energy production in your mitochondria. So your cells need energy. We talked about this at the makeover, good energy and bad energy. You need CoQ10 to make good energy so your body can heal itself and function properly. But what's one of the most important things for your heart to function properly? CoQ10. Interesting. So if you're on a statin medication and then not taking CoQ10, you're going to have a big problem. You're actually going to have more heart issues than if you didn't take the medication in the first place. So what are the dangers of cholesterol medications? Like I said, they inhibit the liver from making cholesterol. So if you don't have enough cholesterol, we're going to have issues with hormones because we need cholesterol to make vitamin D and testosterone and estrogen and cortisol. So none of our hormones are going to have the building blocks to be created. So that's a big problem. Guess what your brain's made of? 60% of your brain is made of cholesterol. So if you lower cholesterol with medications, the brain and nerve tissue begin to deteriorate, and you block serotonin uptake sites, which means decreasing serotonin causes depression. So when you take these medications, you're actually causing your brain to shrink and causing depression. Great, just what we wanted. But don't worry, there's a medication for that. Yeah. And then we talked about the CoQ10, which is the antioxidant needed to transfer energy from food to our cells. Again, your body needs this. And if you don't, CoQ10 will actually help reduce inflammation and protects you from cancer and aging. And it's the primary building block for the cells of your brain and nervous system. And you're not going to have it anymore because you took a medication because a blood test said your cholesterol was a little high. That doesn't sound like a great idea anymore, does it? But I will tell you, if you're taking the statin, please make sure you're taking CoQ10. You need it in your body, and your body's no longer making it properly because of the medication. Now, there's two major studies. One is called the Framingham study, one of the biggest studies ever about heart disease, coronary heart disease, and fats. And the guy who created this study, this is Dr. George Mann, actually says saturated fats and cholesterol in the diet are not the cause of coronary heart disease. That myth is the greatest deception of the century. Interesting. Yet the doctors are still using that exact study to tell you why you need the medication. Great. And the other one was Dr. Stephen Sinatra. He's a cardiologist. This quote was great. The reason more cardiologists have not focused on the evils of sugar and simple carbs, which are what causing the inflammation on the inside of your arteries, rather than cholesterol, is because there is no patent on blood sugar. Basically, I'm saddened to admit most doctors are indoctrinated or educated by the pharmaceutical industry. There's no money in talking about the studies that show the relationship between excess sugar consumption and heart disease. True, true, and true. Great. So what are some things that we can do besides changing our diet to reduce the inflammation in our brain and in our blood vessels? Omega-3s, we talked a little bit about this earlier. What EFA and DHA, or EPA and DHA, those are the omega-3 fatty acids that reduce inflammation in our body. They can help with fibromyalgia. They can help with bipolar and depression, bipolar disorder and depression, because essential fatty acids actually block the abnormal signaling in the brain, which is present in depression and mania. So EFAs also boost serotonin levels in the brain. This is all medical studies showing this stuff. So omega-3 fatty acids, and then Alzheimer's. Weekly consumption of fish significantly reduce the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And EFAs, or your essential fatty acids like omega-3s, protect the vascular system, reducing brain inflammation and aid in the regeneration of nerve cells. Wow, powerful stuff. So again, could you get enough from your diet of omega-3s? The answer is absolutely. You would need to eat cold water wild-caught fish probably at least 3 times a week. Being that we live in Atlanta, we are not really close to the ocean. Most people don't eat very much fish anyway. I eat it maybe once a week. And I know that I'm not going to get what I need from my diet, so I would rather take a supplement to make sure I'm getting what I need. This is why I like the omega-3 fatty acids that we have here at the office. So which one do you take? You could go to Costco and buy the Costco brand because you get 3,000 pills for $5. But at the end of the day, the most expensive supplement is the one that you pay for and doesn't work at all. I don't care if it was $5 for 5,000 pills, but if it doesn't work, that's a 0% efficacy rate. So the one at Costco, it has 300 milligrams of your total fats of EPA and DHA. The one we have here, the Pure Path Omega, has 1,000. So which one do you think would be more effective? Obviously, the Pure Path Omega. You might pay a couple extra dollars than the one over at Costco, but you're getting quality and over quantity for sure. Now let's talk about the nervous system, because your posture and your brain are directly related. 90% of the stimulation and nutrition to the brain is generated by movement of the spine. So this is very interesting. I had a conversation with my son the other day. I've told people this before as well. Have you ever sat at a desk all day, did just about absolutely nothing? You sat all day. How could you be tired? You go home and you're exhausted. And then there's days that you are nonstop walking around doing things, getting stuff done. At the end of the day, you have all this energy. If you think of your brain as a battery, what charges your battery in your car? It's your alternator. When you are driving, and movement is actually spinning the alternator, which is recharging your battery. There's a little, car maintenance there for you. The same thing happens in our brain and our nervous system. Our brain is our battery. What charges it is actually spinal movement. So when I'm busy here at the office, I'm adjusting a bunch of people and running around. I have more energy at the end of that day than if I was standing around waiting for people to come in. So what do you need to do if you're sitting at a desk? How about sitting on your wobble cushion? You get that wobble cushion moving, you're actually now moving your cerebral spinal fluid, you're moving your spinal bones, and you're actually charging and recharging your brain. And this is actually one of the most important pieces of keeping your brain young. there was a gentleman named Roger Sperry, and he received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1981 for his research on the brain. And he said that 90% of the stimulation and nutrition to the brain is, like I said before, is generated by proper motion of the spine. And most people know that your brain needs fuel like glucose and fat, but that's not what keeps it working from a neurological perspective. That comes from motion. So one of the issues I see a lot of is subluxation or misalignments in the spine, especially at the top of the neck. When that moves out of alignment, gets stuck, your head and your spinal movement doesn't move as well as it should, and that will actually shut down nutrition to the brain. And then you can have things like headaches, but anxiety, depression. I can't tell you how many people I've adjusted who are so much happier when they leave, not just because we made them smile with a joke, but we actually turned the power back on to their body and to their brain. So when we're adjusting you, it's like rebooting your nervous system, your brain, by getting everything functioning again properly the way it should. And then we have something called that bathes our nervous system. It bathes our brain, bathes our spinal cord. It's called cerebral spinal fluid, or CSF. And CSF is inside, like I said, inside your spinal cord and inside your brain. It does not go anywhere else. And it goes up and down, okay? How does it move? Your sacrum, your tailbone. When you're walking, your tailbone is actually doing this, which is the cerebral spinal fluid pump. And it pumps the fluid up and down your spine. So when we're having you do the traction and we have you do the wobble cushion exercises, what are you really doing? You're stimulating cerebral spinal fluid to pump. So even without an adjustment, when you're at home, you're doing those exercises, you're now making sure everything's flowing. The cerebral spinal fluid is moving up and down. You're going to have more energy, because if those things are not happening, what are you going to get? Headaches and sleep issues and sinus problems and numbness and reflux. These are all signs that your body's not functioning, is not moving as well. What should you do? Make sure you're getting adjusted on a regular basis. But in between your adjustments, what should you be doing? Your home care exercises. I promise you, when you do those regularly, you're going to keep your brain healthy, you're going to keep your spine healthy, and you're going to have more energy because things are moving. So that is about it for our brain Octane workshop. But I did put together two other things I wanted to talk about briefly. One is we did put together a brain Octane bundle. All the supplements we talked about here tonight, the omega-3 fatty acids, your 5,000 units of vitamin D, the adrenal balance, and then the KHS memory supplement. We did put a bundle together. It's $169 for everything, but we're doing it for 20% off here tonight. So it's only $135.20 for that bundle. And then Whitney is going to, I think if you just text our name or text our phone number and just say bundle, we'll know that you want that bundle. We'll put it aside for you. Now, a couple other things I wanted to talk about, because I've been doing this functional health test kit. And this is something I did a workshop on, 2 weeks ago? We did the workshop, maybe 3 weeks ago. And if you want to learn more about it, you're already on our YouTube channel. Make sure you go. I have a webinar. It's only 30 minutes, all about the test kit. It goes in depth about what it's testing for. But what's interesting, I've got a lot of the results back, and I've been sitting down with my patients, and I found that if we are worried about cognitive decline, dementia, Alzheimer's, things like that building in our body, or cancer, these tests are actually testing for susceptibility to those diseases. Because if you have too much oxidative stress, which is one of the things that this talks about, if your oxidative stress levels are high, that tells me you are very, very susceptible to Alzheimer's, dementia, and cognitive decline, accelerated aging. We also talk about gut health in there, which can lead to things like brain fog, because a lot of people are dealing with brain fog right now. Their memory is not as good as they should be. Their stress levels are too high. This test can actually point out what needs to be addressed so we can fix those problems. Especially if you're somebody like some of my patients that, you're living the 5 essentials. You've been getting adjusted for years. You are eating really well, and you're still just not getting the results you think that you should be getting. There's probably something else. And I had a patient this morning. She's one of my star patients. She's been with me for years. I've used her as a testimonial for multiple different events, because she's always setting the new bar and just trying something new and trying to get better results. And she's been frustrated. She's had, inflammation in her joints, brain fog, bloating, And we ran this test, and everything that she's been complaining about, we had an answer for in this test. And I'm super excited because I got to meet with her today. We gave her care plan. She's starting her new supplement regimen tonight. And I'm excited for her because it's finally, we have the answer as to, I'm already doing all the things you're telling me to do. I'm already eating, I'm already exercising. Why am I still not there? A lot of it had to do with glutathione levels, and it had to do with leaky gut issues that need specific regimens to be fixed. So if you would like to get a test and find a little bit deeper answer as to maybe why you're dealing with the brain fog, or your memory is not as good, or your stress levels, or your digestive issues, or you're just tired all the time, or your joints are aching, I think this test would be huge. If you'd like to get this test here tonight, text the word KIT and we'll give you a $30 discount. The kit is typically $399. It'd be $369 for you. It takes about 14 days to get your test results once you do the test. And this is something that you do at home. I'd be glad to help you with it. It is a blood test. So you just prick your finger and put it on a piece of paper. It's a urine test and a saliva test. So those three things you do, again, at home. And then you take it over to UPS. They send it out for you. And then we get those results in about 14 days. And I work with a functional medicine doctor who sits down with me, and we go through the case. We create a care plan. It's between 4, 5, and 6 months. And then we present it to you. And if you'd like to do it, let's get started. So I just want to let you know we have these options for you. But I'm excited that you guys are here tonight. I hope some of this lands with you. And I hope you guys take some steps towards better brain health and really to supercharge your brain and memory. I'm excited to see you guys at your next visit. Have a good night.